know, if you guys go belly up in 5-10 years, I'm worried about that for Blaine and his wife, the neighbors. Okay? That's a big concern. The other thing is, if we vote on this tonight, which I'm gonna make a move to table this, and that's after talking to the attorney, because my phone's blowing up all day. And there wasn't anything positive about doing this, but I did call our town's attorney, and he did say this, that we cited a precedent. So I'm making a motion to table this, until I have further discussion or redo with the town's attorney on this.
I'll second it, but I think we need some more discussion.
I would, now that there's a motion and a second, I would like to let them finish with their presentation. Potentially answer any questions that's contained in here that's not out here yet. So, could you please continue?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the next slide is just some benefits of the pollinator habitat. It mostly boils down to having abundant, healthy pollinators, increased yields of a lot of crop plants that we eat every day, and produce on kind of a mass scale, obviously minus corn, but yeah, and then the deep-rooted prairie plants and grasses increase soil nutrients, water infiltration, soil organic matter, and fertility. So again, after the lifetime of the project, which I'll actually talk about in a sec, this piece of land will be really fertile and actually really productive. And then I also just put in this slide about the establishment of the habitat. So we do have a plan for that. We submitted a vegetative management plan in our conditional use permit. Basically it boils down to the fall before construction, we'll plant a cover crop, so winter wheat or oats, just to help with kind of stability of the soil. And then during construction, again, topsoil will be completely preserved on the site itself. We'll do the double cut method of just grading the substrate and keeping the topsoil where it is, so doing it kind of piece by piece. And then after construction, we'll spread our seed mix, and then there'll be a mowing schedule 3 times in year 1, 2 in subsequent years. And then we also have a designated vegetative manager whose full-time job it is to go around to these sites, manage all the invasives, do spot treating, a lot of manual pulling.
One Energy does all the maintenance, the mowing, the
Yes.
whatever. One Energy does that. That's not on Blaine.
Correct.
There's
Yes.
no plans, Blaine, for any animals on the site. Well, there are pictures where.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know, you can put sheep out there.
Yeah, we
Not
have
goats.
100.
Then you would have flowers.
Yeah.
Not goats.
No, let's climb on them.
Yeah, we want to do cows someday, but they're kind of big, so.
I'm sure.
Yeah, actually, the next slide is just some nice photos. We again have some sheep grazing at some of our sites. We have 180 acres right now in grazing, and then we also keep bees at some of our sites as well. Yeah, and so actually to get to some of the questions, I threw in a few frequently asked questions slides. So to the first one, the use of farmland. So a lot of times people are like, why are we putting all the good farmland into solar? Like,
Think good farmland.
yeah. Yeah, and we like to point out that farmers are already energy producers. About 37% of the corn that we grow actually goes to corn ethanol, and solar generates 100 times more energy as that. And then again, it's local energy that's used locally. And then there was a study by the DOE that actually estimated the amount of agricultural land that would need to be converted to solar to account for all of our energy needs across the entire United States, and it was only about 1%, and that is no means by what we are advocating for. We're nowhere near that, and again, I have farmers in my family. It's really important to me. I don't want to be advocating for that. And yeah, as Blaine was saying, this plot of land specifically is pretty unproductive, and so putting it into solar kind of diversifies the income of his farm and allows for a little bit better energy production.
Are there any guarantees of energy produced in whatever contract you have with we or what, Blaine, I don't know which one it applies to, but is there any guarantees of efficiency and effectiveness in production?
I guess there's no guarantees, but it is within our best interest to have the maximum amount of energy produced at all times. I'll also say that the project itself is technically like constantly monitored on like a 0.2 second scale and time frame because
Buy
of
one
the
energy.
by one energy and the utility. So there's like multiple points where the transmission of the data from the energy comes back to those two.
So the company stays involved
Yes.
forever.
Yeah. Well, technically,
Airports,
yeah.
you don't build it and then go somewhere else, and then it's left on its own resources. You're involved
Correct.
at every stage going forward.
Yeah, so it kind of begs a bigger question. In Wisconsin, there are kind of two pathways for a project after it's constructed. So the first one would be that a company would construct the project, then they would own it, and then sell the energy back to the utility, and then the utility would sell it to their customers. And then the second one would be that a developer or a utility, but mostly a developer, would develop a project, sell that asset of the project to a utility, and then they would then fold it into their energy production, and then they would sell that energy to their customers. And in the past, in the energy territory, the second one has happened, so I can't guarantee that that'll happen here, but that's what's happened in the past. And then from then on, they bid out the management of the actual project, and we've won that every year, so it would also then kind of fall to us from there.
I guess I would say I'm solar challenged. So my question is, and I don't know how true it is, I don't have facts, figures, etc. But I guess, you know, kudos to Wayne for trying to improve his financial situation. But my thing is, you got a bunch of solar farms. You're creating energy, you're selling it. What's in it for me? Is my bill gonna go down? And I've heard that people's bills do not go down. There is no impact. So, you know, you got this whole project, but how is that gonna impact the general consumer?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and honestly, we get it a lot of meetings like this. And again, in Wisconsin, there is no legislation that's regulating that except for the PSC. So they're the ones that determine the electricity costs. And so if the Energies was to own this, or we were to own this, we wouldn't be able to change what the cost and price of energy would be from a consumer standpoint. I completely understand. I would also like to see my bill go down. But hopefully with more projects like these, more local energy, we'll see a stability within retail prices. I can't guarantee that prices will ever go down with market fluctuations, but hopefully in the future with like more local energy that's more accessible, that will kind of stabilize the market.
What's the tax benefit to the town of Palmyra?
It's actually on a couple slides. It's here. If you want to go to the one that says project benefits, there is utility aid payments that come from the state of Wisconsin. So to the town of Palmyra, it would be $6,500 a year, and then over the lifetime of a 50-year project, it would be $320,000.
Of the 1-year project?
You keep saying 50 years, why?
Yeah, so our current lease for the land and for the project is 30 years with 2 possible years of extensions, and that's simply due to the lifetime, the insurance of the lifetime of one panel. And so it's kind of like your car, you warranty it for a certain amount, but you do expect it to continue working.
Who has the option on the 2 10-year extensions?
It would be in agreement with whoever owns the actual project, the asset, and the landowner.
Just to be real clear on that,
Mhm.
the 157 current taxes would come off the payroll or off of the tax roll. So you
Yes.
would not get that, but in lieu of it, the benefit for the town would be an additional $6,350 of income per year.
Correct. Yeah.
And how is the 6,500 calculated?
So that's based off the megawattage. So there's a calculation that was released with the legislation from the state of Wisconsin. So because it's 3 megawatts, oh my gosh, don't remember the exact calculation. I believe it's $2,000 per megawatt and then divided. So the town, because it's town of Palmyra, they get 1/3 of that, and then the county would get 2/3 of that.
I'm curious, that was my next question. I'm curious why
Yes.
the county gets more than the town.
It's because of the jurisdiction. So if you guys were a village of Palmyra, then you would get 2/3, and then the county would get 1/4. I don't know.
Let's do it again.
Explain why.
Sorry, I wish.
Blame the county rep, not delaying the.
Because we have to have all the infrastructure to do the zoning. And if you guys were gonna have your own zoning out here, like you do in villages, you would have to spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to put that in place, basically. You're welcome. And I got one more thing to say, you go ahead though.
The present ownership is Blaine Paulson, correct?
Correct, he will
He
always
is
have that.
selling the property then to your,
No,
he's leasing it, he's renting.
yes,
And he still pays the taxes.
yes.
But are you compensating him for all that?
For the taxes,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, no, well, I know you get paid,
Well,
but the thing is I ran into this the other day up north where a lease was running out. And suddenly things have turned real bad, and that's for the cell tower.
Okay.
And she didn't know what was gonna happen, they don't respond, they don't respond to her, and those are just things that I've learned and heard, and again, I'm concerned for Blaine and his wife too.
I don't worry about
Yeah.
us.
Huh?
Don't worry about us, but the one thing that I want everybody to understand is this is 32 acres of farmland, and 1 acre of it is considered class 2 prime. 1 acre of it. The rest of it all class 5 and 6 non-prime. It's garbage.
I understand.
And it's up in the middle of nowhere where you don't really have any neighbors. You've got my brother that lives on the 7 acre hump down there, and he's already been notified. It doesn't seem to care. And there's a neighbor back there. That's about it. And anybody will have a hard time seeing it. They're worried about, there's nobody that's gonna look out their front window and see this. Nobody.
I do have a couple of questions, because I did look up on the internet. Do any of your machines have lead or, you know,
Oh yeah, there's no batteries. That's what I was gonna tell
cadmium
you.
in it?
No,
Okay.
that's a really good, thank you for bringing that up. There's actually some old technology of panels that have cadmium in them.
Okay,
And I think there was some studies that found that in the soil. These do not have that. So we're using kind of the best quality that we can find. So they're monocrystalline silica. And so silica is one of the most abundant elements on Earth. And so it's all just that. And then it's only ever made of aluminum as the frame, and then the steel are used into the ground. So those are the only metals.
there's no fire risk from this,
No, there's nothing flammable on them,
but
they.
it's a reflection on the dry grass.
So actually, that's also kind of a common misconception. There is really, the reflection of them isn't really there because they're designed to absorb sunlight. They
Okay.
really don't reflect very much. And so yeah, if there would ever be a fire, it would be like a smoldering ground fire, but it wouldn't be called a panel.
All right, with our airport though, when it's rotating, would that at some time blind us a pilot?
So because it's so close to the airport, we are gonna be filing, I believe it's called a notice with the FAA.
Oh, with the
A notice, so they'll be aware of it, and then they'll give their approval as well.
How do you know you're gonna get their approval?
That's the FAA.
Yeah, that's
FAA.
okay, yes.
It's not Palmyra Airport.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's the FAA,
Yeah.
kind of like a water tower with a light on the top of the lights.
And there are
The 400-foot
panels,
pole that's a half mile down the road from that.
yeah, and there are actually a lot of airports have their own solar arrays that power their airport, and so they're right next to where all the planes take off and land. Yeah,
Okay, I did have a couple more. When are we after it's passed, or when in the process do we as neighbors get notified? With this letter after it's okay? And what good does it do us then?
well, so right now, this is the final say for a yes or no for the conditional use would be from Jefferson County. And so this is a recommendation from the town of Palmyra, for that to the county. And so, yeah, we plan on, by their instruction, would notify 2 weeks before that town meeting,
And
to that county.
my last question is, you said from 2018. there are other companies like yours that do this.
Yes.
So are you more of the baby coming in versus?
Well, as Seamus said, we're actually 2013, that was my mistake.
Yeah, but still, that's not that long.
Yeah, so the solar industry is pretty new, I will say that. I would say that we're a new company. We, especially in the region, in Wisconsin also, we're pretty established. We have a lot of completed projects.
Just, one thing to think about for that, our boss there, Wilhoffen, who worked as a contractor when he did this, installed the first utility scale solar project in Wisconsin in 2012. So the entire industry in Wisconsin is from 2012 on. So we actually consider ourselves with these style projects to be the leader in the state for this type of work. We don't do a ton of the big projects. Against those, no one speak against it, it's a different thing, but what we do with this distributed, we really are the leader in the state.
Okay, and I've got a couple of questions for you. All right. When you did the environmental study, how far down was the groundwater table in the bottom?
I don't know if we have, for the wetland delineation stuff?
Yeah.
They don't necessarily test for that, so they're looking for surface,
Yeah. All right.
wetland testing.
And how much equipment do you get from China?
None, actually. So our panels are from Indonesia, the inverters are from Taiwan, the transformer is actually from Eaton Cooper over in Waukesha, which we're really proud of, and all of the steel is US steel, which we're also really proud of. So,
Is there storage on site?
on site, no, nope, yeah.
So I studied solar. I talked to solar representatives from Wisconsin. And I had a friend who was a solar person in California for decades.
Awesome.
The consensus I got from those gentlemen, because I thought about putting some sort of a home place, is there's not enough sun days in Wisconsin to make it viable compared to the southwestern state. And the number of years those panels last, each year their ability to absorb diminishes. It's called a downturn. And without federal subsidies and tax credits, the money it costs to install it is a wash by the time you get to the end of the downturn. So they're not going to produce 3 megawatts for 25 or 35 years. Right? So at some point, they're going to have to be continuously changed out to continue to do 3 megawatts. And then the day when you guys maybe take the best 5 years to sell it, is there an escrow account for dismantlement later?
Yes, so to go to your first point, so in Wisconsin, actually technology in the last 5 years has reached a point where it's so good that it actually is viable in Wisconsin. So I'm not gonna pretend that we have obviously a lot of dark days and a lot of cloudy days in the winter, but it does produce a lot of energy that can actually power a lot of the grid. So yeah, obviously projects that are in the Southwest might produce more, but definitely still viable in Wisconsin. And then also right now in Wisconsin, the cheapest way to produce the cheapest way to produce energy is actually solar. So on a kilowatt scale, it's the cheapest form of energy, even with the upfront costs that come with it. And I believe your second point was about the degradation of the panels. And so, yes, they do have some degradation. I believe it's about 0.5% every year. So yes, you're correct. After on a long-term scale, they won't produce up to 3 megawatts. But it will still be producing energy, and it will always be kind of within whoever owns it in their best interest to have it produce the most energy possible. So if that does require kind of system upgrades and panel replacement, things like that, that can totally be what happens later. But again, it's kind of goes back to if it's more money to replace it, then it would be to just keep it going and kind of produce energy, then that might not happen, but yeah.
So if
And
that
then-
happens, no matter what the reason is.
Yeah.
The consultant, one energy sites, it's no longer profitable,
Yes.
whatever. Is one energy responsible for removing all of the
Yes.
equipment?
So actually, if you would like to go to this one, the frequently asked question is removal. So we do get a lot of questions on the decommissioning, and people obviously, very rightfully so, don't just want what if we go under and there's just a half constructed project sitting out there? So I like to point out that within our lease, the company, the owner of the project, is contractually obligated to remove the project within 1 year of it no longer producing power. So that will always carry with the lease with the land. So that's kind of baked in. We also submitted a decommissioning plan with our conditional use permit. So we have a plan in place for that. We use reputable recyclers, so nothing will go to landfill. Both of these, Ontility and the retrofit company, are electronics recyclers that also do solar recycling for panels and all the equipment. It's also, we will, in the plan, every single piece, including underground wiring, all that will be completely removed and reused, recycled. Yeah, and then again, you would, if this project were to go to completion, and if it were then, like it has in the past, been bought by We Energies, they also have funds set aside for decommissioning specifically. So they're, by law, obligated to have that from the
Do
PSC.
you have funds set aside? There's escrow question, do you have funds set aside for decommissioning?
So we don't now, but typically that is a conditional, or a condition within the conditional use permit, which we are happy to provide. The way that that usually works is we would then get a third-party engineering firm to assess the project, how much equipment we plan to use, where, all of that. They'll give us an estimate on the salvage value and the decommissioning cost, so the actual cost of coming in, removing it, and then that would kind of inform the financial assurance for that.
Well, I can figure in inflation.
They do, and
10, 20, 30 years down the road.
Exactly, so then we also recommend that you put it in the condition to then do that study every 3 to 5 years, depending on how often you want it, or honestly, you could do it every year.
Absolute worst case scenario.
Yes,
The new legislation impacts solar, a bunch of companies go out of business.
yeah,
You guys go belly up, who takes care of them if you don't have an escrow?
so the project won't start construction unless there is an agreement to finish that construction. So we would have all the funds in place and an agreement with the
So we
utility
should
in
know
order
whether
to have
the
that.
legislation is impacting you and this by the time you start construction. I would think you'd want to know, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, we would have all of that in place before the legislation would come through theoretically.
It's already started, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, I mean,
The bill passed July 4th.
There's a very complicated step down the road to
Yeah.
2027.
Sure.
Excuse me. So there's no escrow required for decommissioning it, like right from the get-go? In other words, you start digging, or you start doing what you're doing, and halfway through the project, it goes belly up, something happens. There's no escrow in place right from the beginning to say, okay, we can step in and clear this out.
yeah, well, technically, right now, because there's no conditions on the conditional use permit, no. But that could easily be a condition, if that makes sense.
Before it goes too far.
No, here,
Before anything gets approved.
Before anything gets approved,
Correct.
there's gonna be some kind of
Yeah.
fail-safe, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it could be, yeah.
So there's certain, without getting too far off track, 'cause I've actually got a handful of multiple questions. There's only a certain amount of things within conditional use permits that the town has the ability to, number one, recommend, not dictate, but recommend to the county board of zoning, right? The county zoning board could look at it and say, well, this one's illegal, it can't take, if we say we want a 60-foot pink elephant in the middle of it, well, we don't really have that jurisdiction, right? But the things that the town board recommend to the county zoning board, hopefully will be taken into consideration. That would be made a condition of the conditional use permit being granted, if they choose to even do it themselves. Separate body, right? So, without saying what time and what kind and how much and where for and how long, like those are all of the things that we can recommend as a board to the county to have them consider as part of it. None of it exists now because they've only submitted an application. That, like, there hasn't been a county review. That the first stop, unfortunately, quite honestly, in the whole process of this, is the first stop is with town board. And then it goes forward from there.
Well, I realize you wouldn't have an escrow in place now, but I'm just saying, once it starts, once there's investments, And once there is, you know, you've gone that far. I mean, this isn't something where you build it and 5 years later you decide to have an escrow. So this would probably be something that the town or the county would be recommending as part of the permit. Yeah, okay.
So these are kind of questions to you and sort of questions to them, because I'm not sure which one it falls on, but 32 acre parcel,
Correct.
15 acres is being leased potentially for these guys. Or is it the 32 acres being leased and then the 15 of it is the solar array?
The final survey of the project is where the final acreage is determined, so.
So you're leasing the fence line, wherever the fence line goes in. The rest of, the remnant of the property would be Blaine's. Okay, alright. That frames a couple of the questions I have. From a topographic standpoint, one of your diagrams says between 3 and 8 feet is how, like, the bottom to the top of the panels, but you were talking about how these soil trackers are mounted so that they're all unilaterally at the same elevation. Do you know, or can we find out for you, there's like 5 foot contour between the highest point and lowest point within the fence? If you guys grade the median point and cut 2.5, do you, like, how do you do that, or do you just balance those things with then eventually end up being called 13 feet tall to make up the 5 foot difference?
No. So it would be, yeah, we have like a tolerance window of 3 feet within that. So we would grade to that, so that everything on average would be 7.5 to 8 feet tall at max tilt. So when the panels are flat, like in the middle of the day, that would be 5.5 feet, whatever that kind of extra is, if that makes sense.
From a land disturbance, obviously there's 15 acres here that you're talking about developing, I'll say developing. From a land disturbance standpoint, knowing that you've only got, I'll call it piers, for panels to be mounted to, does that come into a DNR permit for grading? Because it's
Yes.
more than an acre aggregate?
Yeah, so then we would get, that's part of the process, so after this, then we would get the DNR stormwater erosion management permit. So then they would approve all of our civil plans, make sure everything's kind of up to snuff, and then also verify that any runoff would be the same pre and post construction or better.
So that comes, from a company standpoint, that would come after the conditional use permit approval, or?
Yes, only because we can't submit something to the DNR if the project doesn't really exist yet, and without this permit, it doesn't really exist because they can't, field all of these maybe speculative projects, so.
But it would be subject to the DNR's
Yes,
NOI process and all the
Yes.
rest of everything that goes with it.
correct.
Okay. So if you're leasing the fence, let's call it, what opportunity do you guys see? I drive past the one out on Highway 12 twice a day since it's open anyways. And it was a cornfield, so obviously there wasn't really screening there to begin with. It was cornfield, 3-foot ditch and pavement, as far as that goes. To Blaine's point earlier, there's currently not a whole lot of visual acuity to anyone knowing that it's there. Is screening something that you guys do? I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive to plant trees next to a solar farm. I understand that, but do you guys do any other aesthetic screening besides just the deer fence or native vegetation, or do you pick one or
Yes.
the other, or?
Actually, yes, we definitely do screening for some of our other projects, especially if they're along roads or houses or anything like that. I will just say upfront, this site is really well screened already. It's like mature trees and shrubs are pretty much the entire way around it, except for a little bit to the south, where Darren lives. Yes, for some of our other sites, we do pine screening, and then we also do kind of a native woody shrub, which is actually based on the Department of Transportation's living snow fence, which kind of gives it like an agricultural feel, and then it's also really like wooded, screened even in the winter time, kind of because it's like really sticky. Yeah.
How long does the,
I was just curious, like at some level, we still remind her to, excuse me, have a motion and a second to table it, but trying not to waste time one way or the other at some point. It looks like from the aerials that for the most part, the 32 acres you own is farmed relatively out to the extent of the property line. You're not, there's no wooded area that was so dense that you're not farming kind of thing. So from the standpoint of being able to establish screening, you would have to be off lease on the property, if that makes sense, because the trees that border the property, there are some for sure, but the trees that border the property aren't really plains at this point for the vast majority of what it is. Granted, somebody can come in and clear it, it's just subject to land clearing regulations, which the county is whether or not they can do it, but from a, could you see it at some point in time, that's where my mind is, why I'm asking the questions of screening and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
How long does construction take?
6 to 8 months.
And
4 to 6 months.
what size
average.
vehicles?
So there'll be a few semis. We say on average for construction, it's 3 to 5 semis a day during height of construction. And then anywhere from 5 to 30 people every day. The project at height of construction will produce about 30 jobs. So,
If there would be any concern about roads, you tearing them up, does One Energy bring those roads back where they were?
yeah, so actually, also for the conditional use, we usually do that. So we really work with the local towns and whatever roads that we're kind of proposing to use, we would then submit the whole route of what we could do or what we expect to use town road wise, and then come to an agreement. Basically, we can do road inspections on a weekly or monthly basis, and then we're obligated to fix anything that would be damaged.
I'm asking a lot of questions because this is the first time we're talking about solar.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know anything about it, so I'm
No,
asking a lot of questions.
that's great.
I'm not positive or negative about it, I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah,
My other, I don't know if I call it concern, my other issue with this is it's the first time we're setting precedent. And we have to make sure we make the right decision based on what could potentially come down the road as well, so.
Yeah.
Just to clarify things from my questions.
Is this the first one in Jefferson County?
no.
Elkhorn, that's Walworth, isn't it? Yeah. There are others, I didn't.
Yes, there are others in Jefferson County. I do not know them off the top of my head.
Okay, but
We've actually-
I'm just wondering about the
We've
precedence.
constructed
These guys have done one in
Yes.
Hackworth.
Yes, we did, actually, Hackworth, that was solar, thank you for pointing that out.
Hackworth's full of this years.
Yes, so we have a few that are constructed and in operation in Jefferson County.
And it was constructed on time, started on time, finished on time.
You mentioned
Where did you
solar.
say those
So-
are, Mike?
What?
Where did you say those are? Where is it?
Hackworth is, the name of it is Hackworth. It's over towards Lake Koshkonong and Fort.
Actually, I believe it is in the town of Koshkonong.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
town of Koshkonong and it was in the urban service area of Fort Act.
So what
And,
you're saying is you go around and name these, that one over there's got a different name than, is that what you're saying? The one in the heck?
So,
Yeah.
we've kind of gone through a lot of iterations of how we name them. Some of them are named for towns, some of them are named for local water features. This one we kind of thought it was
So
kind
it's
of
no
fun.
different than Palmyra, Whitewater, Eagle.
Exactly, yeah, so if you would like us to change the name, feel free to do that.
Sauterville.
Are they all different legal entities?
What do you, like each individual project?
Ownership, legal entity, who owns the different ones?
Well,
Are they all
yeah.
different?
So as I said before, in Wisconsin, in the past of the ones that we've constructed in the Energies territory, those all have been sold to the Energies, and then they fold that into their
Who's the
power
owner?
production. The owner of the project, the
Yes.
Energies, WAC.
Next question. Relative to silica, you mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
What is the